Hola chicos, en este video vamos a hablar de la diferencia entre ser y estar. So we've learned these two verbs, ser and estar, and a lot of you have had the question, well, how do I know when to use which? And I've kind of put off answering that question for you. So today what we're going to look at is deciding between the two verbs. So here we go. I think of ser versus estar as kind of like a boxing match. So we're going to start in round one, just looking at the basic general idea between the two, all right? So ding, ding, here we go. We know they have the same meaning, okay? So say it to yourself out loud. They both mean, that's right, they both mean to be. Ser was actually the first verb we learned. So now, our question is not to be or not to be. Our question is ser o estar. Esa es la pregunta, okay? So let's look at how we make that decision. Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is have handy the forms of each verb, because there's nothing more frustrating than figuring out when to use ser versus estar and forgetting what the form of the verb is. So we learned ser way back when, and those forms are soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. We learned estar way back when, a couple chapters ago, and we're going to work with estoy, estás, está, estamos, estáis, están. I'm just glossing over these, but the beauty of the video is that you can pause it and fill those in at your leisure. So if that's what you need to do it, all right? Make sure you have these handy. So let's look at what are the general rules. What are the basic rules for ser versus estar? Well, we're going to represent ser in red during this entire lesson, and that's because we're going to think of things that are permanent, okay? Things that stop changing. So those would be like inherent traits or characteristics, things that don't change. Like my eyes are blue. Mis ojos son azules. Now, I could buy contacts, or maybe your eyes aren't the same color they were when you were a baby, or things like that. But for the most part, that's not something that changes, okay? We're going to use that for any sort of characteristic, any sort of trait. If you want to say, oh, I'm a teacher, then I would say soy profesora, okay? We're going to use green to represent estar. And it's green because it's always changing, it's always going. So that's for anything that's temporary. So like a state of being, an emotion, or a condition. So could maybe your physical location, or if you're sick, those things are kind of changing in their influx. Like I might be downtown today, but tomorrow I'll be in the valley. That's something that's very temporary. Or I might be sick today, but it's assumed that I will get better. So that's very much a temporary condition, okay? So those are the general rules. Ser is for mostly permanent things. Estar is for mostly temporary things. Now, just to make things fun, you know there's going to be exceptions. So don't act surprised when you say, but you taught us this. Because there are exceptions, and we're going to talk about what those exceptions are, okay? So here we go. I want you to look at the following topics, and I want you to think, what would I use to describe this thing? Would I use ser or would I use estar? Okay? So go ahead and pause the video right now and go through and decide whether each of these is ser or estar. Okay? Pause. All right, now that you've unpaused, let's take a look at them. Location is going to be estar because it's very much a temporary thing. There is one big exception to this, and we'll talk about it, okay? So whether you want to talk about temporary location, where you are located right now, or permanent location, like Trader Joe's is on the South Hill. That's staying there, right? We're going to use estar. When you talk about professions, you're going to use ser, because it's a permanent thing. Can you change jobs? Yeah, of course you can. But it's generally a permanent thing, okay? It's not something you change day to day. An emotional state of being, that's definitely something that changes, so we're going to use estar. Possession. You might have thought, I'm not sure what she means by possession. So possession would be like, the books are yours, or that is my water bottle. I don't know, okay? Those are ideas of possession. And possession is usually temporary, so we're going to default to ser. Origin. Another one, you might have thought, I have no idea what she means by that. So origin is where do things come from? So like yo soy de Spokane. That's my origin. So we've learned that at the beginning of the year, so we're going to use ser. Health. Health is something that changes, and I'll talk about this in a little more depth. If you're talking about how you feel this week versus how you felt last week when you had the flu, that's very temporary. If you wanted to talk about, like he was a sickly child, well, that's more of a long-term permanent thing, and that would be kind of a very specific instance. But normally, our health is temporary. I might be doing great today, but I get a virus and I'm, bedridden tomorrow. That's a very temporary thing, so we're going to use estar. Physical characteristics. So anything that's a characteristic, we're going to use ser. This one is goofy because a lot of us think, well, we can change our physical characteristics. We can, if we're short, we can grow tall if we haven't hit our growth spurt yet. Or we can lose or gain weight, or we can change the color of our hair, or we can tan in the summer and be less tan in the winter, things like that. But what we also have to take into consideration is that when language was invented, you didn't dye your hair. You didn't purchase contacts. Your physical characteristic was pretty much, your lifestyle didn't really change over the course of your life, so whatever your physical characteristic was pretty permanent at that time. So we have to kind of keep those contexts in mind. So do not fight me on this one. If it is a physical characteristic, just use ser. Just be okay with it, okay? All right. Now, we're going to go into round 2. Ding, ding. A couple more details, all right? So there are some rules, and we're going to learn a little expression to remember what the rules are. And there are lots of occasions when we're going to use ser. So the first one is origen, origin. So we learned at the beginning of the year, de donde eres tú, right? And then our answer, soy de wherever you might be from. So we know that we're going to use ser to talk about origin. Where do you come from? Nacionalidad. Usted es venezolana. Yo soy estadounidense. Whatever your nationality is. We could actually kind of include that as a characteristic if we wanted to. Eventos. Eventos is the really tricky one. We're not going to use ser to describe location except for events. So, la fiesta es en la casa de Amelia. You might say, well, a party is temporary. And that's true, but just accept this one as the exception and be okay with it, okay? It'll make your life easier, trust me. All right? Tiempo. So we know tiempo, in this case I'm referring to time. Tiempo can mean a lot of different things. So, son las 10:11 de la mañana. Or kind of mixing events and time, we could say the party is at 5. La fiesta es a las 5. So we're going to use ser for time, okay? Even though in 1 minute from now it will be 10:12, it doesn't matter. Just go with it, okay? Posesión. This is the example I gave in the last one. Los libros son del colegio. The books are of the school. They belong to the school. So we're going to use ser. He is a double one. Profesión. Yo soy profesora in Odyssey. Or yo soy profesora wherever. Or maybe your dad es doctor. Maybe he's a doctor. We're also going to use profesión to describe non-jobs. Like you are a student. So tú eres un alumno. Or maybe you want to talk about something that identifies what you do with your life. Like maybe you're a ping pong player. Okay? You don't have to be pro in order to use ser to talk about being a ping pong player. Okay? Because that is something that you are. Material would be literally the material that something is made of. So if you want to say, like, my notebook's plastic. Mi cuaderno es de plástico. Okay? And finally, and it's actually cut off by my cam here. Let's see if I can adjust. There we go. Is characteristics. So we're going to use ser to do characteristics. So an example would be, mis hermanos son altos. Again, you're going to say, well, characteristics can change. Don't fight it. Just be okay with it, all right? So I've just given you a huge amount of rules to remember here. And in order to help you remember that, I'm going to give you this acronym. Oh no, Ed, the purple puppy might cry. That's how you're going to remember all those things. origin, nationality, events, time, possession, profession, material, characteristics. So say it out loud to yourself. Oh no, Ed, the purple puppy might cry. Okay? Now, this works for me. This works for a lot of people. Maybe this doesn't work for you. Then I want you to personalize it. I want you to come up with some other acronym that's going to help you remember all of those uses of ser. Okay? So, now that we know how to use ser, we're going to look at estar. And estar is actually only used for two really instances. One for location, localización. Whether that's permanent or temporary, it doesn't matter. So, you are at school. Vosotros estáis en el colegio. My house is far from school. Mi casa está lejos del colegio. My house is something permanent. It just sits there. It doesn't change, but we're still going to use estar. Location, location, location. Okay? We've seen the exception to this, and that is events. So maybe we want to say the graduation is at the arena. La graduación es en la arena de Spokane. Okay? That's another one. You just have to go with it and remember, oh no, Ed, the purple puppy might cry. Well, that's an Ed. So that's a ser. That's it. All right? The other thing that we have to think about is condition. This is condition. This can be physical condition, emotional condition, any other type of condition that you can think of, really. Anything that's changing. So, for example, I'm happy because I just got a high grade in Spanish. Yo estoy feliz porque acabo de sacar una nota alta en español. This is a condition. Maybe in 5 minutes I'll be mad because I stubbed my toe. That can change, okay? Ella está de mal humor. She's in a bad mood, but you know, maybe tomorrow she'll be in a better mood. It's a very temporary thing, okay? So whenever it's a temporary condition. The way that I like to remember this is loco, crazy. Loco. Location, condition. That's it, nothing more. So, if you think about it, estar es loco. The verb estar is loco. We're going to use that to remember it. And we're going to say es loco because estar is always loco. Okay? It's a characteristic. If you didn't understand that last part about estar es loco, don't worry about it. Alright? That's pretty much it as far as ser versus estar goes. So let's get some practice, okay? You're going to pause this several times in the next minute or so. What I want you to do here is look at these sentences and determine whether you would use ser or estar. And then, of course, you need to conjugate the verb. What I would also like you to do is justify your answer. So, for example, if you're looking at this one, you might say triste, which means sad. Well, that's an emotional condition, so that's going to be estar. Okay, so you're going to say, ella está muy triste. I want you to write those out, okay? So, go ahead and pause me right now and write them out. So now that you've unpaused me, you should have them completed. If you needed a little more help, here you can see I've color-coded them for you. If you're done, let's go ahead and check our answers. So, triste is a condition, so está. Rubia is a characteristic, so we're going to use es. Estadounidense, oh, and I should actually say estadounidense, and I apologize, is a nationality, so that's going to be ser. Están en tu casa, location. Tú eres estudiante, that's kind of like your profession, all right? You got one job. Yo estoy enferma, I'm sick. That's my physical condition or my health condition. And that's it. So, make sure you remember, oh no, Ed, the purple puppy might cry. And you'll be good to go. See you next time.